Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Surprise, surprise, I'll have another blog out right away. It was only a couple of days since I produced my previous blog. Tonight I'm going to be going over the game Mutant Crawl Classic. It was nearly a year ago that I backed the Mutant Crawl Classic Kickstarter campaign. It was successfully funded in July of 2016, and the book is supposed to be released approximately around August of this year. First, a little background information on it. Mutant Crawl Classic is an old-school, post-apocalyptic role-playing game, which is fully compatible with Goodman Games' Dungeon Crawl Classic. It is in fact one of the selling points for the game on just how compatible they are. This week, I got the PDF for the game, but due to work and training issues, I hadn't really had the time to go through it until this weekend, in fact, until this morning. So, first thing this morning, I read over several sections of the game and skimmed over others so I could get a good sense of what the game is like itself. As expected, it is old school and would play pretty much like the old school games many of us grew up with, if you happen to be my age, that is. The rules were pretty simple and it wouldn't take much at all to jump into the game and start playing. Several highlights I'd like to talk about when it comes to the game. It expects the players to start at 0 level, and the game creators want players to make up a mess of characters, as the vast majority of these characters will not survive their first few encounters. I guess that's pretty much the way the beginning game of Dungeon Crawl Classic works as well. There are also classes that you can play, but it's odd because some of the classes are what we veteran gamers would consider to be races. Anyhow, I digress. There are several classes, such as the Sentinel and the Shaman, Healer and the Rover. Again, very basic classes, but it works just fine. Unlike Mutant Future or Gamma World, the Mutant Manimal and Plantient are also considered to be classes, not actual player races. If I was writing them up, they would have been player races, but again, I digress. There is technology and mutations in the game as well, although both are rather sparing. The neat thing, though, what really makes it freaking hard to write material for this game is how mutations manifest in the game. First of all, you have to roll a d4 and see what happens when you use a mutation. I'm not 100% sure if this is every time you manifest a mutation or if it's only when you create it or when you get the mutation. And then there's a table of effects that range from 1 to 32. The lower a number, the worse effect that there is, while the higher end rolls will have varying effects, all getting better and better the higher you get. It's a pretty neat system, but as I said, if you wanted to write up old mutations to be used with the game system, it would take an obscene amount of work. Those mutation books I wrote up, that maybe will be published someday, maybe they won't be, probably more the latter than the former. They would be about 10 times their size if I tried to write them up for the style that's used in Goodman Games. Anyways, the game also employs what is called wetware, which is, for all intent and purposes, these are spells to be used by shamans and the various robotic, AIs, holographic, and other constructs. As with the mutations, there are manifests and varying effects depending on how good the roll is. There are a number of critical effect tables included, and some of these are based entirely upon the character class. And you might expect, not only do they have critical effects, but critical fumbles as well. It made for some interesting and often quite entertaining reading. Interestingly enough, the game does not have an alignment per se. They are actually called archaic alignments, which are more reminiscent of the cryptic alliances which were found in the various editions of Gamma World. And if I'm not mistaken, they were also called factions in Darwin's World. That section there was also a section that deals with robots and AIs, and it also includes rules on AI recognition, which is a take on a similar system which appeared back in the 80s for Gamma World. I'm not sure if it was in one of the actual editions or if it was an article I had read in one of the various Dragon magazines. But anyways, it's one article which I had rewritten entirely on my own and incorporated into many of my Wisdom from the Wasteland issues. This game has its own version, and to be honest with you, it's pretty simple and it looks quite cool. Each robot, AI, android, and so forth has its own statistic block as well, so they can be used as enemies for the players to encounter. Well, it doesn't have to be enemies, they can be NPC allies. I guess it's all up to the way you design your game. I won't deny it, I do miss the old flow chart for figuring out artifacts, the one that appeared in the first and second edition if I'm not mistaken. But the game has its own method on how to discover the functions and abilities of an artifact, and a nice table to roll on to see what happens. Again, just don't roll low. The various fantasy games out there have gods and goddesses for the PCs to worship and to become priests and clerics in order to serve. This game has patron AIs, and frankly, I thought it was one of the neatest ideas presented in the game. In order to gain a patron AI, the shaman must activate a patron bond wetware program. As with the mutations, there's a chance, there is a table to be rolled on, and the results will have varying effects. As I stated before, don't roll low. These are ways for PCs to gain wetwares and other benefits, depending on the particular patron AI they choose, much like the gods or goddesses a fantasy character would choose. I had been hoping to see more creatures, but this section was likewise rather pared down. But there were enough creatures to get a basic game started. Despite how much I enjoy Pathfinder, it's nice to have a simple stat block to use instead of a full page of stats, saves, abilities, and so forth. It's actually quite refreshing. Even if it is old school, but that's my personal opinion. Still, I would have enjoyed seeing far more. I'll make the assumption that with each passing module the game produces, there will be more and more creatures, mutations, wetware, and technology to be added to the game. Like we saw in the good old days of gaming, where a module was more than just an adventure, but had lots of new source material as well. Finally, the core book comes with an introductory adventure called Assault on the Sky High Tower. It's a simple adventure to introduce new players and the GM to the whole system and the world. Overall, as I said, it's a simple game, and could probably be a lot of fun to play, although truth be told, I probably won't get a chance to run or play anytime soon. I have only time for my once per week Pathfinder game run by a good friend of mine, and I just don't have the time to consider playing or running another game. I'm just too busy. Oh yeah. For those of you who have been following my blogs for years, you know I have quite exacting taste when it comes to artwork. This is the only downside I had for the game itself, the book. I won't lie, I fucking hate the game in the the artwork in the game. It's absolutely terrible, in my personal opinion. Not other people's, mine. The art is pure old school, and if it's what you like, then you'll probably really like it. I have stated in the past that just because your game is old school, you don't need terrible old school style artwork. You can hire good artists to do the work for you. Again, this is all personal taste and does not reflect on the product itself. I will give this game a 5 out of 5 when it comes right down to it. Art be damned. I just hope that it's going to be as well supported as the flagship game for the company, their Dungeon Crawl Classics. Right now, when I go to the Goodman Games webpage, I see they have 6 modules coming on the Coming Soon page. I'm going to hazard a guess that these are all PDF modules, and with the print versions coming out in the near future. It leaves me with a bit of a conundrum, though. Do I purchase the PDFs, or do I wait for the final print versions to become available? Time will tell. Also, I did not see an actual release date for these modules, but then again, I didn't look too closely or check out the forums, although the core books do have a release date for August. There's also a fact that I'd hoped that a lot of my old Mutant Future material could be used for this game. Some of the technology and creatures, maybe. Mutations, though, due to the way they handle it in the game, in the Mutant Crawl Classic game, it's not very likely without doing a hell of a lot of rewriting. Maybe some of the mutants I wrote could be used, but they would have to be converted as well. That shouldn't be too much of an issue, though. Oh yeah, before I forget, the game uses strange dice that Dungeon Crawl Classic came up with. You have all the standard dice that people have been using for years, but it also calls for D5s, 7s, 14s, 16s, 24s, and 30s. Now I'm going to show you a couple of sets that I actually purchased probably last year about this time, because I did buy the Dungeon Crawl Classic core book. So this is what the dice containers look like, and I'll just pop one open and try to show you some of the more interesting dice that they have here. Like here's their nice little D14, their D24, it's kind of a ball more than anything, a D30. Then again, I've had these D30s from way back when, hell, when I was still in high school. So you can get those by going online. Just that, don't go and try to buy them from Amazon.ca, the Canadian Amazon. The seller I saw there, he wants $70 for a set of these dice, and that's absolutely obscene. You can get sets of these dice on Amazon.com for about 25 bucks, including shipping. So definitely pick them up there, if you want them, that is. And that's it. I hope to touch upon Starfire... Yeah, I can't talk today. I'm tired. I hope to touch upon Starfinder later this week, maybe for next Sunday's blog. But after the review for this game, I don't want to write another or produce another massive 35-minute or longer blog like I did about a month and a half ago. So, welcome to summer. Stay happy and continue enjoying life. And thank you for watching.